We're here tonight to ask the council's support in advancing a project that has been part of the city's fabric since incorporation. When I was hired in January, the city manager, during our interview time together, it had just rained. There had just been significant flooding in Leucadia, and she made the comment that if somebody could come in and help solve these final Leucadia flooding issues, it'd be the number one priority, that something she would very much appreciate. As you all know, Ed is new to staff. I'm a fairly new director. So we launched into giving a fresh set of eyes to the history of the flooding in Leucadia. We have not found many bases that haven't been covered in the past. However, what I think has become apparent is a lot of the work, the modeling work that the city has relied on for many years, was done in 2003. Technology has developed a long ways since 2003 with computer modeling. There are now many enhanced models that can help us fine-tune what is happening, what we're looking at. The other thing that is just reality is a lot of improvements have been made throughout the corridor since 2003. So the model that we rely on for a lot of the design, both public and private down there, just doesn't reflect today's current condition. So we came across a grant opportunity, the Caltrans. It's a planning grant, transportation planning grant, and we went ahead and filled out the application. We're here tonight to ask for the council to ratify that grant application. As you can see in the staff report, the total amount of the grant was $524,000. The local share would be $131,000 if we're granted the money. And what it would help us do is it would help us develop a brand new plan for the entire watershed for Leucadia, for Old Encinitas, and Leucadia. It would give us an updated model that we could use for both public and private development projects. As you know, tonight we heard a lot about Leucadia Streetscape. Obviously, that's a big chunk of the area down there. A lot of the projects that we're working through with NCDD, one of their big concerns is stormwater and the management of stormwater. So this effort would help us in all of those regards. So I think everything is in this staff report that you really needed to see. There's a long history. The city has done a lot of things over the years to improve the situation down there, and I think it's time that we really get an update on technology and where we're at. There are also a lot of new construction techniques that were looked at in the past that would be looked at differently today. So basically, I think what we're here to ask for is your support in allowing us to put a fresh set of eyes on this problem. We have been talking to a much more regional or global approach with San Elijo Joint Powers Authority. Mike Thornton's been talking to the Conservancy folks, the Lagoon Conservancy. So I think there's a lot of interested parties that would work with us to make sure that we come up with a good global solution down here, or a good global tool that would help us really make sure that we've covered all our bases. So with that, I'll just entertain any questions that the council may have.
Councilmember Krantz.
Yeah, I really appreciate having this application. First of all, are there any public comments on this issue? One, I actually would like to hear from the public comment first, if possible. Is that
Russell
okay,
Levan.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
Get a two for tonight. Russell Levan,
And the first thing I wrote down is, hallelujah. Yay. Thank you for bringing this up. Thank you for putting that on the screen with Brad Lancaster. I've been hoping this day would show up for this issue. For many years, we did bring Brad Lancaster to town, and I was trying to look and see what, it was 4 years ago, 5 years ago, to speak actually publicly at the Leucadia Foundation, but then he actually spoke with several departments, and we went on a tour of the city. And this is a way forward that I think could really benefit the city, especially when we're looking at large projects with streetscape. But the key to what he generally says, and a summary for those books, is you start at the top of the hill. Water flows downhill. Excellent, you get an A. And so if you can look at the original source and work on that before it accumulates, you have less flooding. And I don't think it's rocket science. I think it's just building a system that is opposite of what we have done for 100 years. We've built systems to convey the water as quickly and efficiently as possible away from our homes and down the hill and dump it in the ocean. And then we realized, wow, that causes a lot of problems. And so if we can hold the water uphill, take it out incrementally, and actually, and this was a shock when I brought this up at one department here several years ago, and use the water as a resource instead of looking at it as a nuisance or a contaminant, then we're creating a real benefit. We're using the water as a resource. We're eliminating a lot of pollution issues that are going to occur downstream by accumulating all those toxins along the way, and it's the modern way to do it. I was up in the valley last week in Los Angeles, where they've put in a system that really pulls a lot of the water. It is at the bottom of the hill. It's in the valley, so that's the bottom of the slope, but that was historically always visited by the news channels when it would rain, because it would put the houses underwater. I mean, all of their front yards were submerged, and they put in an elaborate system that basically pulled the water off at every house and everywhere they could sink it into the ground and store it, and it wasn't flooded last week, whereas the rest of the streets in the neighborhood were literally up to the car doors. So there is a way to do it. I'm really excited about this, so thank you.
Before you go away, Russell, there was a facility that I think predates the Director of Public Works where we installed several vertical pipes, and one is right by your house. Has that helped?
It definitely helps. I mean, my vision for that project would be that we would put a series of those going down the street, so you don't have to just try and collect it. And it did mean that when they come to with the vac truck, instead of having to come 10 times, they came later and half as many times.
So that was my way of segueing into thanks to the city manager and staff for their efforts in trying to solve some of these problems. I will take responsibility for this being on the screen. It wasn't the director's decision to put that up there. I attended the workshop that Brad Lancaster put on at Leucadia, and he introduced to me the term hydrophobia, and indeed that's what we've been fighting against. And so I appreciate the opportunity to obtain this grant so that we can use the information that we will get from it to look at more progressive ways of dealing with the stormwater and do our best to harvest as much of it as possible. Along those lines, I will say that I met Russell here in the council chambers as we were advocating for roundabouts on Leucadia Boulevard, and he came to that podium and recommended that what we should do is put a cistern underground at the Hygeia location of the roundabout because, in fact, it's still uphill, and we could then use all that water to water the landscape. And I don't know if we're too late on that. I know we're finally going to put in the roundabout, but those are the sort of ideas that we have. One of the reasons NCTD has got the problems that they have in the corridor is because all of the water currently that flows downhill off of Leucadia Boulevard is intentionally channeled into the corridor, on the east side of the corridor. So I look forward to obtaining this grant and doing the necessary modeling to bring back to the council some proposals that would address some of the significant issues that we have with stormwater in Leucadia. Thank you.
Can I mention that when you asked if it works pretty well at my house, but again, I'm at the pretty much the top of the hill, and so when you look at the sump that we put down on Coast Highway across the street from just north of the Leucadia post office, but on the east side, there was a video about a year or two ago in a rainstorm where some guy was actually surfing up the Coast Highway behind a car. You couldn't even see that sump pit for, I don't know, a month after it rained. So bottom of the hill, top of the hill, works differently. But thank you.
Thank you. I did have one question. I received an email about the issue about not putting in a bigger pipe, that it was really the city council prioritizing money and not coastal commission that was limiting the size of the pipe from years ago, and that this is a falsehood that's been perpetuated across many years. Do you have any thought on that? Or
I couldn't really comment on that. The background that I put in here was just from research in the public record.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
So I would move approval.
Second.
Let's go ahead and vote.
Motion carries unanimously.